A fully loaded coal train runs through a mountain in Virginia every single day. It does not go over the mountain. It does not go around it. It goes through it, through a tunnel 850 feet long and 10 stories tall. A tunnel that no human being ever cut, drilled, or blasted. A tunnel that nature carved over the course of 1 million years, and that a railroad company discovered in 1890 and simply laid tracks through. The train enters from one side, it disappears into the mountain, and it comes out the other side carrying coal from the mines of Appalachian, Virginia to power plants across the southeastern United States. Up to 10 trains per day, through a hole that nobody built. That is where this story starts, but it is not where it ends. Beneath the Appalachian Mountains, from New York to Alabama, from the ridges of West Virginia to the caves of Tennessee, there is a second world. Not a metaphor, not a legend, a documented, surveyed, geologically confirmed world of passages, tunnels, chambers, and underground rivers that run beneath the mountains for hundreds of miles, connecting ridge to valley, valley to ridge, state to state. Some of these passages have been mapped, some have been walked, some are still being discovered today, in 2026, by cavers who enter a known section and find a passage that leads somewhere no human has gone before. And all of them, every single one, were built by the same engineer. Water and time. This is the story of the tunnels under the Appalachian Mountains. What they are, how they got there, what lives inside them, and why the passage that two of the world's largest cave systems share has not been found yet. To understand what is under the Appalachians, you need to understand what the Appalachians are made of. These are old mountains, among the oldest on Earth. The Appalachian Range began forming approximately 480 million years ago, when what is now the eastern seaboard of the United States was the floor of a shallow tropical sea. Corals, shellfish, marine organisms of every kind lived and died in that sea for hundreds of millions of years. Their shells, their bones, their calcium-heavy remains fell to the seabed, were compressed, were buried, were transformed over unimaginable time into limestone. Limestone, that is the key word. That is the material everything else depends on. Because limestone does something that most rock does not. It dissolves. Not quickly, not visibly, but when slightly acidic water, rainwater that has absorbed carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, or groundwater carrying organic acids from the soil, when that water contacts limestone, it begins to eat it, molecule by molecule, grain by grain, century by century. It finds a crack. It widens the crack. The crack becomes a fissure. The fissure becomes a passage. The passage becomes a tunnel. The tunnel becomes a chamber. The chamber connects to another chamber. And over 10 million years, you get Mammoth Cave. This process has a name: karst. A karst landscape is one where the bedrock is soluble, where water has been working underground for so long that the surface above is riddled with sinkholes and springs and disappearing streams, and the ground below is hollow, honeycombed, full of spaces that look, to human eyes, like something deliberately built. 20% of the land surface of the United States is karst, and the Appalachian Mountains, from Pennsylvania to Alabama, sit on one of the most extensive limestone karst regions on Earth. Now, the natural tunnel in Virginia, Scott County, southwestern tip of the state, sandwiched between eastern Tennessee and eastern Kentucky, a place so tucked into the Appalachians that the nearest city of any size is Kingsport, Tennessee, 20 miles south. Here, more than 1 million years ago, a stream called Stock Creek was flowing across the surface of the land. It reached a limestone ridge called Purchase Ridge, and instead of going around it, the water found a crack. The crack widened. Over millennia, the stream was diverted underground, and it spent the next several 100,000 years carving a passage through the ridge from one side to the other. The result? A tunnel 850 feet long, 200 feet wide, 80 feet tall. To stand inside it is to stand in a space that feels constructed. The walls are limestone, pale, striated, ancient. The ceiling arches overhead like the nave of a cathedral. Fossils are embedded in the rock at eye level, the remains of creatures that lived in a tropical sea before the dinosaurs existed. The floor is flat enough to walk on, and running along that floor, on steel tracks laid in 1890, is an active railroad line. William Jennings Bryan visited this place in the late 1800s. He was one of the most famous orators and politicians in America, three-time presidential candidate, Secretary of State, a man not given to small statements. He stood at the entrance of the natural tunnel and called it the eighth wonder of the world. The railroad engineers who arrived shortly after were less poetic. They looked at an 850-foot tunnel through a limestone ridge, conveniently sized for a locomotive already open, requiring minimal preparation, and they laid tracks. The South Atlantic and Ohio Railroad opened the line in 1890. The first train passed through in 1894. Norfolk Southern runs it today. CSX has trackage rights. Up to 10 coal trains per day pass through a tunnel that nature spent 1 million years carving, and that no human engineer designed. No blasting, no drilling, no excavation through solid rock. Just water and time. But the natural tunnel is not the deepest part of this story. The natural tunnel is visible. It has a park around it. It has a chairlift and a boardwalk and a visitor center. It is one of the most accessible geological wonders in America, and one of the least known. What is not accessible, what is not visible, what cannot be seen from a boardwalk or a chairlift, is what lies beneath the surrounding mountains. Because the natural tunnel is not an anomaly. It is a single, surface-visible expression of a system that goes far deeper and stretches far further than any single formation suggests. Beneath West Virginia, there is the Friar's Hole Cave system, 82 miles of surveyed passage, 8 known entrances, 613 feet deep at its lowest confirmed point. First discovered in 1950, still being mapped today. Underground rivers continue to shape its passages. Every year, explorers find new sections that have never been entered. Beneath the Cumberland Gap, the tristate corner where Tennessee, Virginia, and Kentucky meet, there is Gap Cave. 18.5 miles of surveyed passage. 6 separate entrances on 3 different sides of the mountain in 2 different states. All 6 of them lead into the same system. The cave sits directly beneath the mountain pass that between 200,000 and 300,000 American settlers crossed between 1775 and 1810, on their way from the eastern states into Kentucky and beyond. They walked over it. The cave was underneath them the entire time. The Cherokee knew the cave. They called the gap the warrior's path, a route used for trade, for hunting, for movement between territories for thousands of years before European contact. When Dr. Thomas Walker crossed through what he called Cave Gap in 1750, he was walking a trail that Native Americans had used for an estimated 15,000 years. The cave underneath that trail was there for all of it. And then, there is Mammoth Cave. Mammoth Cave is in south-central Kentucky. It is the longest cave system in the world. Not the longest in America, the longest on Earth. Currently mapped at 420 miles of passage, after surveyors recently added 8 more miles, prompting the national park to announce, in capital letters, on their official Facebook page, the longest cave in the world is now even longer, 420 miles. To understand what that number means, the second longest cave system in the world is 143 miles long. Mammoth Cave is 3 times longer. And the park's own scientists project that the total system, including passages not yet found, may eventually reach 560 miles. Mammoth Cave formed in Mississippian-age limestone deposited when Kentucky was the floor of an ancient sea, approximately 330 million years ago. Groundwater began interacting with that limestone about 10 million years ago. The upper levels of the cave were fully formed 3.2 million years ago. The lower levels are still actively forming today. The cave has at least 5 distinct levels of passage. It has underground rivers. It has rooms called Mammoth Dome and Frozen Niagara and Thanksgiving Hall, names that suggest what it feels like to stand inside them. It has a stable temperature of 54 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, and it has passages that no one has entered yet. Here is the part that stops cavers cold. 3 miles from the eastern edge of Mammoth Cave is the Fisher Ridge Cave System, 130 miles of surveyed passage, the 5th longest cave in the United States, the 11th longest on Earth, a system so large that it took explorers from the Detroit Urban Grotto 20 years, from 1981 to 2001, to map its first 100 miles. Mammoth Cave, Fisher Ridge, 3 miles apart, same limestone geology, same formation age, same groundwater system. Scientists believe they connect. The IUGS, the International Union of Geological Sciences, has stated formally that Fisher Ridge comes close to connecting with the eastern edge of Mammoth Cave. The geology says the connection is there. The water flow confirms it. The carbonate rock that forms both systems is continuous between them. The passage connecting them has not been found. Not because it doesn't exist, because the Appalachian Karst system is so vast, so deep, and so incompletely explored that a connection spanning 3 miles of limestone, in a region where 130-mile cave systems are discovered and mapped over decades, has simply not been located yet. Somewhere beneath south-central Kentucky, in passages that no human has ever entered, Mammoth Cave and Fisher Ridge are connected. The water knows the way. The geology confirms it. The explorers are still looking. Let that sit for a moment. The longest cave system on Earth, 3 miles from the 5th longest cave system in the United States, and the passage between them is undiscovered. This is not ancient history. This is not a mystery from a century ago that no one bothered to investigate. The Cave Research Foundation adds miles to Mammoth Cave every year. The connection to Fisher Ridge is an active research priority. Teams of cavers enter the system regularly, map new sections, push new leads. They have not found it yet. And this is the nature of what is under the Appalachian Mountains. Not a single mystery, not a single tunnel. A network, continental in scale, still being discovered, still growing in mapped extent, of passages that water carved through limestone over tens of millions of years. Passages that connect valleys across state lines without any awareness of state lines. Passages that Native Americans knew about for 15,000 years before European settlers arrived and named them. Passages that a railroad company used as a ready-made tunnel in 1890 because the geometry happened to match a locomotive. And passages that no human has yet entered. Here is something worth pausing on. Every major cave system in the Appalachians was formed by the same process. Acidic water, limestone, time. The scale varies from natural tunnels 850 feet to Mammoth Cave's 420 miles. But the mechanism is identical. And that mechanism does not respect the surface world. It does not follow rivers. It does not follow ridgelines. It follows the cracks and joints in the rock, wherever they go, which means that the underground Appalachians do not look like the surface Appalachians at all. On the surface, mountains and valleys, ridges running northeast to southwest, state lines drawn along watershed divides. Underground, a three-dimensional limestone network in which water flows, sometimes for miles per day, through conduits that cross beneath those ridges, beneath those state lines, beneath those surface boundaries, without any awareness that the boundaries exist. The water that falls as rain in West Virginia reappears as a spring in Virginia. The water that sinks into a sinkhole in Tennessee resurfaces in Kentucky. The underground rivers of the Appalachians flow in patterns that surface maps do not show, because the surface maps were drawn by people who could not see underground. The USGS has confirmed this. The Great Valley Aquifer, the primary carbonate aquifer of the Appalachian Ridge and Valley Province, runs from Tennessee to Pennsylvania beneath Interstate 81. Groundwater in that system moves through passages that connect communities across state lines, and can transmit contaminants from a farm in one state to a well in another state in a matter of days. The mountains above are separate. The mountains below are one system. In 1831, Lieutenant Colonel Stephen Long, a U.S. Army engineer, became the first person of European descent to formally document the natural tunnel. He published his account in a geology journal in 1832. He wrote about the dimensions, the fossils in the walls, the stream that flowed through it. He did not write about what was beneath it, because in 1831, no one knew. No one had the tools to know. No one could see underground. Today we have those tools. LiDAR can map cave passages from aerial surveys. Dye tracing can follow water through karst systems for miles. Ground-penetrating radar can detect voids beneath the surface without excavation. And what those tools have revealed over the past several decades is that the Appalachian Mountain Range, one of the oldest on Earth, formed when this continent was a tropical sea, built from the compressed remains of 480 million years of ocean life, is hollow in ways that its surface gives no hint of. The natural tunnel in Virginia is 850 feet long. Train tracks run through it. You can buy a ticket and take a chairlift to the entrance. The Friars Hole system in West Virginia is 82 miles long, still being mapped. Gap Cave at Cumberland Gap is 18.5 miles. 6 entrances. 3 states. Mammoth Cave in Kentucky is 420 miles. The longest cave on Earth. And growing. Fisher Ridge, 3 miles away, is 130 miles. Possibly connected to Mammoth. The connection has not been found. And beyond the mapped systems, beneath the limestone ridges that stretch from New York to Alabama, in passages that no survey has reached, along conduits that water has been carving for 10 million years, there are tunnels that no human being has ever entered. No one built them. They were built by a process that operated for longer than our species has existed, in a mountain range that was old before the first vertebrate crawled onto land. The Appalachian Mountains, from the outside, look solid. They are not. The connection between Mammoth Cave and Fisher Ridge has not been found. The surveyors are working. The research is ongoing. The geology says the passage is there. When it is found, and the scientists say it will be found, the combined system will be the longest cave ever mapped in the eastern United States by a distance that is not close. It will have been there the entire time, waiting for someone to find the opening. This channel follows the evidence into the places it leads, including underground. The next story starts where someone found something they were not looking for and could not explain what it was. That story is already in the works.